And we finish there with a very well-known Waltz Number 1 in E-flat major, Opus 18 of Frédéric Chopin, all of them performed by the gentleman who is here in the studio with me today. That is the pianist, Jeffrey Biegel. Welcome, Jeffrey.
Pleasure to be here.
Glad to have you here. And you are here for a very special reason. That is, you are making your Toledo Symphony debut Saturday evening. It's a wonderful, really interesting, eclectic program, but all of it certainly perfect for the month of October. You're bringing a piece by composer Michael Dougherty, who is actually based in Ann Arbor, which is just north of here. And his music has been done several times by the symphony. And in this case, we're going to hear a great showpiece called Le Tombeau de Liberace, which is a salute to Mr. Showmanship Liberace. It has to be a wonderful piece for you to really sink your fingers into, I imagine.
It really is. I've not done any of Michael's work before. It's his first time. And, 50 years ago, from this coming weekend, I actually went to the one and only performance I've seen of Liberace, which was at what's called Westbury Music Fair. That's where everybody in the industry played. They had to play Westbury. It was a big deal. Theater in the round. And I'll never forget that experience as the stage would turn. And he had his glass piano, and he came out with the sequins, the white sequined outfit. And it's so interesting that was 50 years ago this weekend. So, I went to his concert. Maybe his spirit's coming to this one. Who knows? Yeah. But the third movement of the piece is called Sequin Music, and it sounds just like what I remember seeing. And I did not know Liberace personally. I think I wrote a letter to him, and I don't remember if I received a response or not, but I was always enthralled by his style and the way he played classics. If you listen to the old recordings, they're just absolutely beautiful. And his arrangements of things are beautiful. I play his chopsticks, and I played a solo piano, and Richard Heyman, who's no longer with us, he arranged from that an orchestration. I have the piano and orchestra version of this somewhere. I have it at home. And I got through Don Pippin, who conducted here many years ago. He got me to Richard to get that done. And so the chopsticks I've played, but his playing was so beautiful. And how he played with all the rings on his fingers and didn't hit the keys. Can you imagine how much faster and lighter his facility would have been if he didn't have the weight of the rings on his fingers? But
maybe he couldn't have played without them. He was so used to working with them. So.
Exactly.
Well, I want to talk more about Liberace and even listen to a little bit of his stage show a little bit later on in the hour. But you've agreed to be here until 4 o'clock today.
Sure.
So we have some time. We have some time to listen to some of your recordings. And one recording in particular, your most recent, in fact, is called A Pianist's Journey. And you've had quite a journey throughout your life, going all the way back to the beginning. I know that you have talked about it in other interviews, and I wonder if you might tell us a little bit about the first 3 years of your life, because you were unable to speak, you were unable to hear. What was the story behind all of that?
All I remember was hearing a sound that was very muffled, as though maybe you would take your hands and cover your ears, but really cover them tightly. Whatever you would hear around you was kind of what I heard, and it was not a very defined or focused sound, but I could hear sound of music through speaker boxes, because that wasn't spoken. So whatever came out of the speakers I could hear was music, even through the floor. That's all I remember. And my parents would take me to doctors, and they would say, oh, he's lazy, he'll grow out of it. But, that wasn't the case. Finally, at age 3, one physician said, no, he can't hear, because he called my name, and I faced the wall. You can't hear. And I guess back in the early 1960s, they did what they could do at the time, and I did have surgery for that. They had to remove a lot of blockage in that area where the eardrum is and relieves the fluid. Anyway, that was an epiphany, I guess. It was a new experience for me. And so the first 3 years, of any normal child that could hear and respond. I did not. So I found other ways to communicate, which could have been by pointing or looking more around me. I still do that. I still look around me because I don't trust my hearing. I realize that. It's also in touch. Other senses take over. So my sense of touch and going to the piano at age 4 and communicating through the tips of the fingers became my native language.
Yeah.
I think. And I still feel more comfortable at the piano than I do speaking English.
Well, it may sound remarkable to some people that an experience like that so early on has stayed with you all this time. But, I mean, I'm a parent, you're a parent. We know how important those first 3 years are, indeed. And I imagine it has affected your entire aesthetic as a musician and the way that you approach playing the piano.
I think it does. And the way I approach music also, and teaching. And it's so interesting that I think the voice is so important. I'm not a singer, but to me, being able to speak or sing what you're doing, I always tell my students to sing out loud when they practice, because I say the fingers follow the voice and play it the way you would sing it. And as soon as I say that, it changes the way they play. And that's, I think, what I instinctively did once I started to study. My teacher at Juilliard was Adele Marcus, and she always sang when she taught. And I thought, I totally got it after that. It took several years. But it's a different way of communicating. And I think someone once said to me, the first 3 years of life are the formative years, and what you are at 3 pretty much is what you are for the rest of your life. Yeah. I'll never forget that, and I think it makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, I want to get back to this album, A Pianist's Journey, which is available digitally, by the way. Let's tell folks where they can find it.
Well, you could find it if you just type in Pianist's Journey or Jeffrey Biegel. Go to jeffreybiegel.com. It'll be there. It's on iTunes. It's at Amazon and all the outlets. I actually registered it through CD Baby, and that's where they all got uploaded. It's like almost 4 hours worth of piano music. Yeah. And it's a journey. It has music in there that I learned when I was 9, 10 years old, and then music that I just recently learned this past year that I wanted to show between the beginning and the present time.
Well, we started with we ended that shuffle with the very first track on the disc, that Waltz Number 1 of Chopin. Is that one of those pieces that you've been playing forever and a day?
Yes, and it's one of those pieces that I dared not record until I felt I was ready to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's just such a well-known piece.
Well, it's a treasure trove, this entire recording, and I was able to sort of pick and choose the pieces that I know and love and enjoy, and listening to your performance of them. The one thing that I really hear coming through is your love for these pieces of music. It's very, very carefully handled, beautifully rendered, beautifully recorded. So it's a lovely recording.
Well, thank you. That's kind. I appreciate that.
I want to listen to a composer that I was not familiar with, actually, before you brought it to me, and this is Hugo Reinhold, right? And we have a work on here, an impromptu of his, which you say is a salute to Chopin.
It is. I first heard this piece. The teacher that I had from the age of 10 till 16 was Morton Estrin, and he did a cycle of recordings for Connoisseur Society called Great Hits You Played When You Were Young. And in there was the Hugo Reinhold impromptu in C-sharp minor, and he played that. I said, I have to learn that. And I'm learning, and I thought, my gosh, this is kind of a tip of the hat to Chopin, because it's Chopin's Fantasy Impromptu in C-sharp minor. Brilliant outer sections. Although the Reinhold ends brilliantly, the Chopin ends softly, but the inside section is enharmonically in D-flat major and very lyrical and beautiful. This is such a wonderful piece, and people who know it, people who don't will now, and I had to put it in the journey.
Absolutely. My guest is pianist Jeffrey Biegel, who is performing with Toledo Symphony this weekend. I just want to mention the concert is at 8 o'clock at the Toledo Museum of Art Peristyle. You can find more information on their website. That's toledosymphony.com, or call the box office 419-246-8000. Here is the impromptu number 3 in C-sharp minor, opus 28, number 3, music of Hugo Reinhold, from pianist Jeffrey Biegel here on FM 91. Impromptu number 3 in C-sharp minor, opus 28, number 3. Music of Hugo Reinhold, performed by pianist Jeffrey Biegel. That's from his most recent album called A Pianist's Journey. We've been sampling that today. We've also been sampling a little bit of Jeffrey himself. He's sitting here in the studio with me. Jeffrey is performing this weekend, Saturday evening at 8 o'clock. A great piece, a tribute to the great American showman Liberace. And you were telling me, Jeffrey, that Liberace actually had this piece by Reinhold in his repertoire.
It is. Toward the end of the Chopsticks, before the theme comes in, he does a Beethoven tribute in there in C-sharp minor, I believe. And right at the end of the Beethoven style of Chopsticks, he goes into this little descending broken chord passage in the Reinhold, and right before it ends, he goes back to Chopsticks in C major. It's in there. And when I learned the Reinhold, I thought, oh, Liberace must have played this Reinhold impromptu also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he brought it with him.
Yes.
I mean, somebody who really did so much to popularize classical music, even at a time when classical music was fairly popular, and also bringing different styles together and doing it with such joy. I mean, you can hear all of that in the piece that you're going to be playing Saturday night. It's called Le Tombeau de Liberace, or The Tomb of Liberace, which is an interesting title, and this is music of Michael Dougherty. Before I ask you to explain that, we listen to a little snippet from it. I want to get in the mood. Yeah. I want to listen to a little Liberace. I'm going to leave our microphones open while we play this, just in case you have anything you want to add. But this is great stuff. I've played it before. 2019 is the centenary year of Liberace's birth. He was born in 1919, so I pulled it out last May on his birthday and played it. Time for an encore appearance here. This is from his stage show. Liberace explaining how the boogie woogie works here on FM 91. Well, the orchestra job was pretty easy there. They just had to come in at the end with that one note. But the great Liberace from his stage show and that performance, just fantastic. I mean, does that evoke any memories for you when you saw him 50 years ago?
Oh, sure. He did a whole show like that.
Yeah.
It's just amazing because I was only about 8 years old.
Right.
So it was in 1969. And it was his outfits. And it was the piano, the glass piano, and the rings, and it's just pianos.
The whole thing.
The whole thing.
But that shouldn't distract from the fact that he was a formidable pianist.
Yes, he was.
And so accurate and so powerful.
I think all these pianists that were born post-World War I through 40s, they all carried that tradition. They were trained by the grand traditions of playing that all came from Liszt and Chopin back to Beethoven.
Yeah.
And the playing was very elegant and very beautiful. They knew what cantabile was. They knew what singing sound was. They knew what brilliant technical wizardry was, because they were all playing like that. And there was, you can even go to YouTube now and listen to recordings of pianists you've never heard of, and they all played so beautifully, dazzling. Right. There was nothing shown off. It wasn't just for effect. You know, like, look what I could do. It wasn't just a technical feat. It was always with music at the base.
I would go out on a limb. I'd go out on a limb here and say that you definitely fit into that category as well.
That's very kind. Well, I studied with Adele Marcus, who was a pupil of Joseph Levine. So, if you didn't, you would be killed. So
well, for people who know their piano, I mean, those are definitely legendary names for the piano community.
Oh,
my guest is Jeffrey Biegel, pianist, appearing with Toledo Symphony, making your Toledo debut on Saturday evening. First time in Toledo.
Yes.
I don't imagine you get out to see a whole lot. while you're here?
No, I'd like to.
Yeah. Well, you just have a little bit of time.
I do.
I know you're rehearsing tonight,
Yes.
and then the concert is Saturday as well. The piece is Le Tombeau de Liberace, which is by Michael Dougherty, a wonderful composer based in Ann Arbor. He teaches at University of Michigan. Somebody who has been attracted to, throughout his career, different iconic figures in American pop culture, as well as architecture, as well as natural landscapes. And he has certainly found quite a ripe subject in Liberace in this piece. I want to hear a little bit about the work itself, beginning with that title, Le Tombeau, the Tomb of Liberace. Where does that come from?
One wonderful work by Maurice Ravel is Le Tombeau de Couperin, which is a suite of pieces in Ravel's language of harmony and melody using Baroque titles and dances. And perhaps that's where Michael got the inspiration from for this. I mean, the first movement even has chords in there that sound a bit Ravelian, not totally, that very original, but you could sense the inspiration of Ravel in the piece.
Right.
And he immediately launches the piano into that left-hand boogie-woogie.
Yeah.
No doubt that's in the first movement.
But you don't have any breaks in that, right?
Very little breaks, because then he alternates. Then he gives the right hand the boogie-woogie and the left hand the chords.
So no audience participation is what I'm saying.
No, I don't have breaks. No. Oh, that was break. Yeah, so the boogie-woogie breaks. No, there's no boogie-woogie breaks.
Yeah.
And the second movement he titles How Do I Love Thee? Well, the first movement is called Rhinestone Kickback. It's great. How Do I Love Thee is the second movement, which is a poem that Liberace used to quote in his shows. And all of the fancy schmaltzy, as we would say, passage work is in there. It's quite interesting, and toward the end he has these rapid alternating hands doing chromatic triads next to each other, which is very ghostly, but it's really effective. The third movement actually does not have the orchestra in. It's called sequin music, so it sounds like sequins, but it also sounds like swimming in Liberace's pool, because the notes for the piece came from his swimming pool.
Wow.
So Michael took those notes that were inscribed in the pool and turned it into a musical statement. And it's the kind of piece I had to memorize it, because it's impossible. You cannot look at the music when you're playing it. I got notice about this last November. Only now do I start feeling comfortable playing that movement. It's hard to remember, but it's all harmonic memory and placement, but it's such an effective, wonderful movement. And the fourth movement is the Candelabra Rumba, which is fabulous. Yeah. I don't want to give it away.
It's a great ending. Well, I mean, I have it queued up. I mean, I was going to listen to that movement.
Give them
so
a taste. It's great.
I do want to point out that I've seen a couple of your Facebook videos posting your practice sessions on that third movement, that shimmering pool movement, the sequin music. And, you know, you're kind of an internet pioneer. We go back to the 90s, and you did the whole thing with the streaming recital, which everybody does now. But you were among the first to do it.
I did the first one. That was audio and video.
Yeah.
And it was in Steinway Hall in 97. And we used they said, which piano would you like? I said, we have to use the 500,000th piano when you have it. And they had it in town, and we used that. It really... Those are actually, you could watch them on YouTube. They were done in Real Player, which you can't use anymore.
Right.
And they couldn't be transcribed to a more modern format for some reason. So I had the videos, and I uploaded them to YouTube, and they're on YouTube now, the first internet recitals. And I think the first one has the introduction by Skitch Henderson.
Wow.
And we had worked together. We did the Leroy Anderson Concerto in Carnegie Hall in the mid-'90s, and I asked him if he would come over across the street, because his office was in Carnegie Hall. He walked over, did the introduction, and I played the concert. So that was nice. It's there. It's preserved.
Wow. That's
but
fantastic.
The goal was to bring music as close to people as possible, wherever they may be.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, let's hear a track from Le Tombeau de Liberace of Michael Dougherty. This is the fourth and final movement, the Candelabra Rumba, here on FM.
Can you play it out here so I could hear it too?
Yeah, I'm going to play it
great.
out here too. got to love that it ends with a good cha-cha-cha.
It's great.
That was the final movement. Candelabra Rumba from Le Tombeau de Liberace. That's music by Michael Dougherty. We heard a recording from pianist Paul Crossley with the London Sinfonietta, Marcus Stentz conducting. You can hear it live in concert Saturday evening, in fact, with my guest today, pianist Jeffrey Biegel. He's joining the Toledo Symphony Orchestra under conductor Alain Trudel, 8 o'clock Saturday evening at the Paris Style. He's performing that music, Le Tombeau de Liberace, with all the bells and whistles and sequins and feathers that you can bring along with you. You're not going to wear anything special, are you, Jeffrey? Or is this a spoiler alert? You act like you don't want to say anything, so we can move on. It's okay.
We're working on it, huh?
Yeah? Okay. Can I tell you, when I was 7 years old and I started taking piano lessons and this is my Liberace memory, for my very first piano recital, my mother took an old jacket of mine and sewed the sequins on and created a big flashy Liberace jacket for my little piano recital. I think I may have played Chopsticks, right? Not Liberace version, but 7-year-old me version. But I still have distinctive memories of that. And somewhere there's a picture floating around. I've kept it away from social media, thank goodness, because nothing goes away in social media, as we know, including this interview, which you're doing Facebook Live for
Hopefully
folks.
Everyone can hear it. I'm not sure. We're trying it. It's not usually done.
Who follow you on social media. We'll also post this later on our own website. We got about 10 minutes left. I want to, I did a little digging on Liberace. Not only is it his centenary year, but some interesting Liberace facts here. I mean, he was a child prodigy. Do you know what his teenage stage name was before he was Liberace? It was Walter Buster Keys.
Right.
Yeah. His family called him Walter, I guess. But Walter Buster Keys, that's a great name. It has a little bit of a Western tinge to it, right? Now, this I didn't know, which is really interesting. He popularized the phrase, laugh all the way to the bank.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
He used to say to the ladies in the front row, you know that bank on Maple and 3rd? And she's like, yes. He says, I bought it.
Nice. I guess he was also an early champion of Barbara Streisand. She did some shows with him, and he got out in front and introduced her, and people started to pay attention. Great legacy there.
Absolutely.
Also, perhaps most surprising, but this makes sense, he invented a disappearing toilet. He invented a toilet that would retract into the wall of the bathroom because he didn't think people should have to see a toilet unless they were going to use it, I guess.
Oh, my gosh. That I'd not heard of.
Yeah. He got a patent on it, but, it never took off.
He made more money playing than he did from the patent.
That's right. That's right. Jeffrey Biegel is here with me, and I'm hoping to play a little bit, at least, of another track from your album, A Pianist's Journey. This is a piece that I love so much because it has such intensity of emotion and feeling, yet it's so simple. And I think that you capture the mood perfectly in your playing, music of Johannes Brahms. We won't play the whole thing, but a little bit just to give people a taste of something contrasting all of this, the Liberace showmanship going on.
It's an unusual phenomenon because coming from the classics and then commissioning a lot of new music and playing pieces like the PTQ Bach Concerto or the Peanuts Concerto or the Monkeys Concerto. Yeah. People think that's all you do. That's all you play are these light, unusual pieces or some commissioning new works. And I'm like, actually, no. I'm still playing Rachmaninoff Third and Prokofiev Third and the major core repertoire. But it's and you mentioned the Brahms. It just brings me home.
Well, let's listen to a little. This is from the Brahms Intermezzo from his Opus 118, the second one here. Pianist Jeffrey Biegel on FM 91. Beautiful music, lovingly recorded and played by pianist Jeffrey Biegel. We heard the Intermezzo in A major, Opus 118, number 2. That's from the 6 piano pieces, Opus 118 of Johannes Brahms. That comes from Jeffrey Biegel's album, A Pianist's Journey. And Jeffrey Biegel, we've got about 1 minute left. You've been here with me for the hour. The hour has sped by very quickly, but I want to make sure that folks know that you're appearing in concert with Toledo Symphony Saturday evening at 8 o'clock at the Toledo Museum of Art Peristyle. It's a great program, including The Composer is Dead by Lemony Snicket, which is a great piece with narration. You know, all the usual October suspects like Sorcerer's Apprentice, Night on Bald Mountain, also the overture to The Barber of Seville. So it's a great program. And you are performing Michael Dougherty's Le Tombeau de Liberace, a little salute to Liberace. As a matter of fact, as we go out, I'm going to bring out the little chopsticks here, which I know you play occasionally.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we just got about half a minute left, so
do it.
we're going to turn it over to All Things Considered. As much as I would like to hijack All Things Considered, I think we needed to turn it over to them. Jeffrey Biegel, thanks so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Brad. Great to be here.
It's WGTE FM Toledo.